Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, the program for trying, anyway, to make the world safe for ADHD. I'm a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist. In private practice, I work with a lot of ADHD kids and adults, and I'm also the parent of an adult with ADHD. And like I've said every week, I think, when my son was young, and actually when I was a lot younger, we didn't know too much about ADHD. Matter of fact, we hardly knew anything at all. As I have said over and over again, I managed to make it through an APA, American Psychological Association, accredited program without ever once hearing ADHD mentioned. I don't know, and that I guess shows how little we know about it. Although it's been around and in the medical literature for over 200 years, somehow we still didn't have anything. This is back quite a while ago, but we just didn't get any information about it. And then when it became obvious to my wife and I that we had some issue with our youngest child, I couldn't get a decent evaluation. In spite of being a psychologist myself, I couldn't find a friend, acquaintance, anybody. I had a couple of guys I knew who had done postdoc work in pediatric psychology, and their evaluation was, to put it bluntly, crap. It wasn't good. It's nothing I would accept now, and nothing I think anybody currently in practice would accept. But that's the way it was back then. So one of the great oh my God kind of days of the year is when you realize that school's going to be starting shortly. Now, in my area, school won't start for another couple of weeks. Some of you I know have already started, and if I'm a little late with this, I'm sorry, but I don't do all of these, with a very careful calendar. I just kind of do what I'm excited about for the week. But today, yeah, we're gonna get talk about some of the basics of getting ready for school if you have an ADHD child. And the first thing you need to do is get your ADHD child back on his schedule. You need to get him going to bed at a reasonable hour, getting up at a reasonable hour, get him back on his medications if you've stopped that over the summer, and just get him or her started, being at least in the routine that you need to be in for school. I mean, I know it's real easy. You're busy, sometimes both of you are working, and so he stays up all night, then sleeps all day. But I know sometimes it gets that way. You can't let that happen. And then, one day he's up until 3 o'clock in the morning, and the next day he's supposed to get up at 6 o'clock or whenever for school. That isn't going to work, okay? That's going to be a yelling, screaming mess. So you got to make sure that you get him or her back on their schedule, okay? That should take a couple of weeks probably, and also the medication thing. Surprising amount of growth happens, physical growth, happens over summers. Your child may have outgrown the medication dosage he's on. So you need to, get him back on it, see if there's a difference, see if you need to make an appointment with your prescribing provider and get the dosage adjusted one way or the other. That's a huge part of things. That kind of gets them back a little bit into the groove. The other thing is you need to make their environment ready to go. Where do they do their homework? Well, it needs to be ready to be used. And that, depending on what area you're using and how you are about clutter, it may be virtually nothing to do to clean it up, and it may be a few days' work, but you need to have it ready to go. And that means absence of clutter, some of the materials that might be needed, and that brings into another thing. You need to be out there early buying the materials they're going to need for the school year, whatever that is. And it's also an opportunity to get some of the kind of interesting and entertaining things, but still practical for an ADHDer, that you can get at places like ADHD Warehouse. We've been talking a little bit about how if you accept the idea that ADHD is mostly an executive function problem, then that the best way to handle that is to externalize everything. What that means is you want to have things like timers. Get the goofiest looking timer you can find. We name the technique of using a timer all the time after a Italian word for tomato, because the timer they used was one of those kitchen timers that looks like a tomato. You can find timers that look like all sorts of things. And make it interesting. Make that space where they have to do homework interesting, not too interesting. You don't want to distract everybody, but you want it so that it's a comfortable place for them to go, and that you have set it up with all the things that are going to be needed. I highly recommend that they never start homework without having the timer on. And set it up to a reasonable time, whatever they've built up to. But understand, at the start of the year, you're basically probably starting over. So you'll have to start with a little bitty piece of time and then increase it over the first month or two of the school year. Okay, the next thing, this is why I don't take a lot of notes. Okay, as a parent, one of the things you need to do is review all the paperwork you have on your ADHD child and make sure it's organized. Okay, that's psychological or neuropsychological evaluations, and depending, if they've got a 504 plan, and they probably should have, you need to review that, see if it's current, see if anything's changed that you can either take out or put something else in. One of the things you want to be aware of is they're not going to get extended time for SAT testing unless they've had it in school and documented. Okay, so you've got to remember that. So you need to make sure you have the IEP. You need to make sure if there's an IEP, an independent educational plan, like they've got a learning disability or something, you need to have current copies of that. And you need to make sure that something's happening, okay? What's supposed to happen with an IEP is you're supposed to have a pre-test, that is, let's say if it's a reading problem, what's your reading level now at the beginning of the year? And then they should have a post-test at the end of the year and note the improvement that has been made over the year. Now, I don't know about where your child goes to school, but I know in my area that almost never happens unless the parents insist. So, if you haven't been insisting, I highly advise you to learn how. Okay? Doesn't mean you have to behave like an idiot, but you need to be firm and assertive and state what your expectations are. And also, by the way, you might mention that it is, after all, federal law. And if they get too many complaints, they don't get all that nice federal money. So be assertive. I mean, repeat firmly but calmly, and make sure that you get some satisfaction out of it, because they're not gonna, well, they're not gonna probably do it if they think they can get away with not doing it. Let's put it that way. Anyway, and so all the paperwork on your child should be organized, preferably in one place. You know, and over the years I've seen everything. You know, I've seen 3-ring binders that have all the stuff in it. I've seen file folders, you know, 2 or 3 file folders that have it. Whatever works for you, but be organized and have it in one place so you can find stuff. So when you have a complaint and you're talking to your advocate, you can find whatever it is they're violating, so that you can go and have a good chat with the school system and you know, get what you need for your child. You know, so it's there's no magic place to put it. You know, some people, if the ring binder works, some people file folders work. Whatever. If you have file cabinets and you use them, file folders are perfectly fine. But make sure they're labeled and make sure you've checked them regularly. You know, what happened 8 years ago isn't really going to matter much to the current stuff. You need a current evaluation. You need the current 504 and or IEP. And then the minutes of the meetings that they should give you as well. And you need to make sure you're getting these things, okay? If your child has an IEP, he needs to be evaluated by the school psychologist every 3 years, okay? And they need to give you a copy of that report. And of course, then it's on you. I'll talk about this a little bit later sometime. Matter of fact, I just make myself a note that I should talk about statistics a little bit. Not because it's such a fun, exciting thing, but if you don't understand statistics, you don't understand what your child's scores mean, you can't say, but that's wrong. Okay? If you're the only person in the room who doesn't know statistics, it's lonely. Okay? They're not going to, they're not trying to get anything over on you necessarily. But if you don't know what you're talking about, it's going to be pretty obvious, and you're going to have a harder time getting what you need for your child. Okay? So you got to learn statistics. I think there are a couple of different places that you can get that, and I will talk about that. I guarantee I'll do it next week, okay? Just to pin myself down, so I have to do something about it, okay? So you need all the paperwork organized in place, and you need to know what it means. You need to know what a standard score is. You need to know what a T-score is. You need to know what percentiles are. Although most of us who work with statistics at all hate percentiles, but they're still used sometimes. So the next thing is when you talk about school, okay, you have to draw kind of a line, a balance, okay? You want them to have a sense of anticipation if that's possible, but you're not going to get it by, you know, as we used to say in the Air Force, blowing smoke up my skirt. You've got to be realistic, and you've got to speak to what their concerns are. You can't just go around going, oh, this will be wonderful, aren't you excited, we're starting school, oh boy, oh boy. Depending on your child's experiences with school, that ain't gonna work. And you know, he or she will just start thinking, well, she doesn't understand what I'm going through, or he doesn't understand what I'm going through. So you've got to be realistic about it. You know, you want to have you would like them ideally to have a sense of anticipation, an idea that the school year will be good. I mean, there'll be some good things about it, you know, and you've got to be a little bit balanced, you know. Some things are going to be good, some things are not going to be so good. You try to capitalize on the things that are going to work out. Almost all ADHD kids have a favorite subject. At least you can jump on that one and talk about how much they can learn. If their favorite subjects happen to be math, fine, or if it happens to be art, that's another direction. But that there's something they've got to look forward to, and you have to emphasize that, because if you're just little Mary Sunshine all the time, they're not going to believe you. And if you're just down and depressed and frustrated about, oh my God, no, we got to start school again. If you do that, it isn't going to make things easier. Okay, so try to have a balance. Try to be reasonably optimistic, and get them looking at things realistically, and hopefully with some notion that there are going to be at least some good things about it. The other things are, basically is coordinating with the school system, and it's on you to do that. They have certain federal regulations that they have to comply with, but you're trying to get stuff done for your child. So ideally, you have a meeting with the teacher early on in the year. You can talk about your concerns about what you know that works for your child and what you know doesn't work for your child, and that hopefully you're establishing a collegial, cordial relationship with the teacher. It doesn't do you any good to go in, screaming mad at the teacher, talk about all the bad things that happened last year or that sort of stuff. Believe me, in the teacher's lounge, teachers talk about all the kids, okay? They spend more time talking about the extremes, the ones who are doing really great and the ones who aren't doing so great. Odds are your teacher will have heard something about your child before. What you want to do is establish a new ground, establish a collegial relationship, one where you can work together, and also let her know that you are watching, you're paying attention to this stuff. You're not just so busy with the rest of your life that you can't pay attention. You don't have time. You don't want to have that happen. Okay, so. And of course, if the school system has a meeting like they usually do, at the beginning of the year, you want to go to that. That's a big deal. Teachers notice that. If you don't show up, they'll notice that, so it's important for you to make the effort to do that. And if you happen to also be active in the PTA. And so on, that gives you a little more clout. Okay, so that's my quick take on what you need to do, what you can expect out of the school year, and how you can prepare for it. Okay, whatever you do, don't wait until the last minute and try to do all this stuff, because it isn't going to work, and it's going to reinforce for your child that sometimes the world is just too busy to be organized. No, you have to show them how they're supposed to organize things and how they're supposed to get things done. Okay, whether it comes easily to you or if you're just always looking at your little notebook and what's the next step on the checklist. Whatever you do, and actually it's probably a better idea if you're looking at your checklist than if you're keeping it all up here. That doesn't tell them that you're working at it, that you have to do some things to stay organized. You're showing them how to be organized, and that's important. Okay, that's my run for today. I am Dr. Terry James Gingras, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, and we're trying to make the world safe for ADHD, because remember, outside-the-box thinkers are the folks who change the world, okay? Not the nice, compliant, inside-the-box thinkers. They don't change much. So your child may be the one that finds the solution to global warming or something big like that. So encourage them. It's important. Okay, I can be reached terrygingrassphd.com, or you can leave me a message somewhere down below or over to the side. I don't remember exactly where it goes, and we'll try to get back with you. If you have some ideas for topics that you'd like to see covered, leave me a note. Okay, thank you. Catch you next time.